The Front Row Back Row podcast is a show where two grad school buddies discuss physical therapy entrepreneurship. I helped guide a company to an 8-figure exit, and I'm now starting my own mobile company. Brian grew his mobile practice to 4 clinics, and he's now doing $1 million in revenue. Join us as we help you grow your own business. Hello and welcome to the Front Row Back Row podcast. My name is Dr. Owen Campbell, owner of Simplify Motion PT in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me, as always, is Dr. Brian Wolf, owner of Evolution Physical Therapy in Connecticut and Long Island. And together we make up Physiogrowth Consulting Group. And as you can tell, this is the Front Row Back Row podcast brought to you by Physiogrowth. See, we're being very fancy with that. We're not just owning our own clinics and working in them every single day, but we also have this company. And if you want to take your PT practice to new heights, do it with Physiogrowth. Our mentorship program helps physical therapists grow their business and boost their income. Join us at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group. Now, Brian, today we are going to talk about referral partners. And for everybody in like insurance world, a lot of that is basically physicians' offices, right? And then cash world is complete whiplash the other way. It is gyms. It is your mom's cousin's third uncle twice removed. It is all this other stuff, community outreach, everything. So today, I think I really want to, we haven't talked about it in a while. And I think that we really should kind of talk about how a PT practice owner the importance of diversifying your referral relationships. And a lot of people understand the importance of it, but like they kind of don't know how to do it, right? Like it's, for time immemorial, we've just been hi doctor, yes doctor, put in some pamphlets, things like that. So like you kind of have to think outside the box. So I know this is something that you've been doing, and obviously I'm getting to know it. I'm drinking from a fire hose here, switching from insurance to cash base. So
yeah. I mean, I think, and the way that we came about this was, I'll talk about something that I heard way back when, which is called the 4% rule. And basically, I would also argue, I know Owen kind of led this with insurance for cash. I would say no matter what you are in business in general, you want to make sure that, only 4% of who is sending you referrals are coming from 4% of one person. Meaning, if I have all these different referral sources, I only want the 4% of my patients coming from one source. So why that's important is you don't want a physician, controlling 80% of your caseload, right? Which is a very typical model, because what if that person moves away? What if that person, and the way this started in the conversation, what I want to talk about today is a reminder. I had this physician. She's an orthopedist. I'm sure she doesn't listen to this podcast, so I can blast it all I want. As far as one of the, we used to be very close. She's fantastic, great shoulder and elbow surgeon. Treated family members of hers. Got very close. She works for a hospital. She was sending me a lot of patients, a ton of patients, and she was one of those people who had her list. But she would be like, write the name down, circle it, go here, right? She's very controlling in that way, wanting to go see that person. So she loved me when it was just me, right? As a physical therapist, said, go see Brian, go see Brian, go see Brian. Help me really build that practice that way, right? But the problem was, a few months ago, a friend of ours, I had noticed over the past few years, that because I wasn't seeing as many patients and she couldn't just be like, hey, go see Brian, she sort of fell out of favor with sending me patients and was sending to other people. No problem, right? And of course, like as a person who takes students, but HSS or a bunch of these other places had hired my students. So because of that, then she was sending to my students. Whatever, is what it is, right? So what happened was, a friend of ours, they basically had a shoulder issue that she sent to another practice. The person to get better with rehab didn't do well. I won't mince words. Clearly got crap care. Probably another bad insurance provider. So goes back and gets, set up for a reverse total shoulder replacement. And so one of our friends sees it and she's like, her arm looks pretty good. We should get her in for PT first before she has surgery. So we're like, you know what? We talked to her, come on in for PT. So she comes for PT, and lo and behold, she gets better the moment she cancels her surgery. And guess who's furious? This orthopedic surgeon. Oh, you look better, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? We just found out today, one of her other patients came in, not through her, through word of mouth. But basically what happened was she took us off the referral list.
Yep.
Whatever. And so now she's referring everybody else, even the crap one. And that's, by the way, that's a problem with, people's egos in general. Like, she has other people on there that aren't as good as us. Whatever. That is what it is. It's going to happen. But as your business, if I need 80% of my referrals which at one point she might have been, that would have been a problem for us. But again, like she wasn't even 4% at this point. She maybe was 1%, if that. And so
Yeah.
why it's important, and the more you can bulletproof yourself, is by making sure you're having 20 to 30 referral sources where they're rock solid, where they're sending you referrals on a regular basis. And so to me, that's super important. So I want to talk about a bunch of different ones. And I know, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's something when you said that, like physicians are the most classic ones that people
Hmm.
go after. But here's the thing about physicians. One, you can't control who they send, so you can lose your niche really easily.
Yep.
Two, when they send them to you, they may not be the greatest patients. They may not be people that you're looking for and to work with, right?
Yep.
In terms of like whatever that, not even niche, but whatever that motivation is. And three, just remember that when these people send to you and they can kind of overwhelm you, now all of a sudden you're losing out on other referral partners you can gain. And I saw the stat once that of all the physicians that actually write scripts like across all the medical professions, only 7% actually get referrals for physical therapy, which means if you go out in the community and create other partnerships, you can compete for the 93%.
Yeah.
So big piece to those guys that are private practice in general, cash based or insurance. Make sure you're going to the community. That's why social media is blown up. So
Well, and to put a bow on it too, with my 14 years working, as manager and regional director, the hardest part really was figuring out who in that office directed, right? So like you knew the surgeon and she circled it, right? But some of our biggest, highest volume referral sources, it was because we knew the MA. Right. Or it was because we knew the front office, or because we had like cute guys that would go in and flirt with the front office girls. And the moment one of those, MAs or front offices moves, all the referrals go,
yep.
and you're sitting there like, okay, where is the key? So this, to kind of put a bow on the physician side, and I'm sure everybody listening to this, if you've been in PT longer than like 2 years, the politics involved in referral sources with physicians. But to put a bow on it, it's not a very, even in your situation, I mean, your situation was a pretty solid relationship, and
Yeah.
you acted by what was right with the patient, in your
Yeah.
opinion. And by doing that, it was a flaky, relationship, right? So the depth of a physician relationship is never very deep. It's always very shallow. And we would always tell our marketers that. We would always tell our PTs that. So yeah, just I know today I want to hear some good. I have a few that I can share too, but like, what are some of the other things that you took your practice from, 50% her or 40% or whatever it was, her people, to now to a point that you protected yourself to diversify?
Diversify, you mean? Yeah, I mean, I think the major thing that I would say that really was helpful for me were gyms to start, right? I mean, and it's funny. I was playing around with ChatGPT to see if they had other things and going there. What does ChatGPT say? Right, physicians and specialists, chiropractors, podiatrists, dentists, and oral surgeons. Obviously, community-based organizations, which are going to break down even more because then it's bigger. Educational institutions, fitness centers and gyms, occupational health services, patient advocacy groups, and existing and past patients. So, like we've talked about in physio growth in our groups, right? The key is nailing down your niche and understanding. I think that community-based organization is key. So we've talked about that athletes are huge for us, right? So I'll tell you one that's recent because I love this one because it occurred to me in a very kind of funny way. So I was playing pickleball for the first time, and now everybody and their mother is playing pickleball, literally, right? To the point where I've never played pickleball before, other than maybe gym class when I was in high school, right? I was athletic, and so one of these things where I was like, this is not a sport that I want to play like long. I'm too young for this, but nevertheless, one of my favorite uncles. He's in his 70s. His wife, and then my dad were like, let's go play pickleball, and I was like, screw it, let's go play. So I'm running around playing. It was actually a ton of fun, but it was just cracking me up as I'm playing. I'm like, here's my 7-year-old uncle needs a total knee replacement, right? My aunt, right? She's got a back thing. My dad, he's been in and out of PT for a hip and neck issue, right? In the past, he's fine. They're all athletic and they're healthy. But I'm looking around and I'm like, yo, we got to go to more pickleball places because I'm like, this is gonna have so a
It's
ton
the
of people.
next CrossFit.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of like the CrossFit for old people. You're right, right? Like older folks. That's hilarious. But it's like
No, I'm
it's
talking. I'm
like
talking about in the amount of sheer
yeah,
referrals we're going to get in the first
yeah,
5 years
yeah,
of its popularity.
yeah, dude. I mean, for sure. So anyway, and there's all these huge pickleball places opening up near us. So one of them was like this big. Actually, this is crazy. There's one in our mall here that took 2 floors. Right, super cool place, huge pickleball
Yep.
place. So I told one of my PTs when I got back, I was like, yo, man, check this out. I was playing pickleball and I was thinking about this. Like, there's going to be tons of our patients. Man, he went there, set up a talk, had 15 people. He's like, dude, I got 4 patients out of that. So
Yeah.
like the thing is, when you think about those types of partnerships, like pickleball places are great, right? So say you want to see active older adults, right? Say you're like in a geriatrics in general, right? Going to senior centers are great.
Yep.
Again, if you want to see CrossFit athletes, obviously go do CrossFit. People always ask me, how do I get more CrossFit athletes? I was like, get off your lazy ass and get into the CrossFit gym and take classes. That's simple.
Yep.
You will get
Yep.
CrossFit athletes, right? Speak the nomenclature, know what an AMRAP is, know how to do a snatch, right? Know how to understand that process, right?
Yep.
F45, same thing. Orange Theory, same thing. Any of these gyms are right for
Well,
the pickings.
and
You can, I know you do one with a local one near you, right?
yep. Yeah. So there's the interesting thing about what you're saying is, everyone knows that these are places where people come from, right? And the trick is getting that relationship, right?
Yeah.
And figuring it out, right? Because you can do everything that you just said, like just set up a table. I think one of the things I want to kind of go into now next, knowing like where we've kind of identified, is how do you make those relationships, right? And then how do you make them actually lucrative, right? So you could
Yeah.
go all the way from one side and be like, I will give you free PT on the side of your pickleball court. And they'll be like, great, awesome. But if you don't get anybody from it, who cares, right? So what I did in my gym, the gym down the street from me, is I used it as I did what was called a revenue share agreement, right? And basically it's because I knew I didn't want to be a gym PT, right? I think there was more money in mobile concierge, so I wanted to go that way. But I knew I needed something where I could use them, right? Like if somebody wanted weights or something like that, I could do it. The nice thing about that is he benefits when I benefit, right?
Yeah.
So if he sends me a patient, he gets part of that because I'm paying rent. It's not against Stark laws, right? So I'm paying for the space. Now, if he sends me a patient and they're at home, he gets none of that, right? So that's how you avoid the Stark laws because it's a rent thing. But looking at your CrossFit gyms, your Orange Theory, there's PTs knocking down the door. So like, what are some of the ways that I don't want to make this into like a how do you become a gym PT podcast, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I guess, how do you solidify those community referrals versus just kind of shaking hands and them saying, oh, you're the PT down the street?
Good question. I mean, the same way that I do stuff with the physicians is where can I bring value? Right.
Yeah.
So the
Okay.
answer is, what do you need? What are the things that you're having issues with? What are some of the problems that you're having? Right. And creating a legitimate relationship, right? Don't just walk in the gym. Don't walk into, me and you talked about for golf, going to golf courses and golf places like, fit club fitters. Like, how can I help you? Right?
Yeah.
Is there a cool place that I can help you? If not, cool. Right? Are you open to a relationship like this? Like blah blah. Like we have such a diverse skill set in physical therapy. So many people don't think about in the different angles of how we could do different things. That's something that we can go and we can do. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, let me go and again, like, do you want to do like an ask the PT thing? How many people do you have that come in here about back pain? Right? I'll be here from
Yeah.
12 to 1 o'clock one day. Right? And
Yeah.
you can blast it out to all of your people on your email list about me. And I'll be here. Right?
Well,
What about like again, for a gym membership, to your point about a profit showing, that's great on the financial side. But I'll tell you a big one for a gym. What's your churn rate like? Right? Find out what their churn rate
okay.
like. So they're like, oh, it's about
Churn
10.
meaning how many people they lose per
Yeah,
month. Yeah.
exactly. So if I have 10 members in a gym and I lose one, their churn rate is 10%, right?
Okay.
They're losing 10% a month. All right, cool. So your churn rate's 10%. Do any of those people leave because they get hurt or they have knee pain, they have back pain, or they have shoulder pain or ankle pain or something like that? And that's like the bullshit reason they give you for why they can't exercise anymore, not because they're lazy and fat and don't want to do it, but because like they're hurt, they blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Yeah. How about if I came here and instead I saw them a few times and I helped be like, listen, like you're okay, like you can see me a few times if you want, blah blah blah, and like, but you should keep doing this, right?
Yeah.
Would that decrease your churn? Oh, totally. Boom. Now you just found a huge
Yeah.
because now I've just helped their bottom line another way. Oh, and by the way, I'll pay you when you send it to me.
Yeah. And I think
Like
that's an
no
important
brainer.
thing to take away is that not every gym owner is the same, right?
Yes.
Orange Series a franchise. They may have a rule against it. You might have somebody who's had to struggle to make payroll last month, right?
Yeah,
And they'll do anything to get new bodies into the in.
for
You
sure.
might have one where he's had to turn down 4 PTs because they're the cool new gym in town and they got a bunch of private equity money behind them, right?
Yep.
So that's the thing where I really like that advice of like you have to figure out how to provide them value. And sometimes it might just be, hey, I'm your PT you call, right? And
Yeah.
then go to the next gym. right?
I've done that with a chiro before, right? Like he'll use me for fitness and exercise stuff. So he'll do musculoskeletal stuff, and he loves to do like blood work and like different stuff like that, like more naturopathic type stuff, whatever. That's what he does. And so I was
Yeah,
like, cool, that's awesome. That's not what I do. I'm like, so he's like, well, this person needs to get stronger. Perfect, send him on over. All right,
yeah,
like so by doing that, even though it's not going to be like if you don't have to find the golden goose. What basically the 4% rule says is don't find the golden goose. Look
yeah.
for 20 people that are going to pipe you a patient a week or a patient every other week. Because in theory, if you're a solopreneur or one or two people, like that's plenty, right?
Yeah.
And so I think what happens is then the next step, which we haven't talked about, is how to get your physical therapist that work for you, how they can create those relationships with other people, or how you can transfer that trust to one another. That's
And
another
if
big.
you are looking to take the next step and you're looking to grow your PT business, PhysioGrowth provides the mentorship and tools you need to succeed. Visit school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group and unlock your practice's potential.
Nice. I'm sure
Boom, right in there.
we'll click on the links in the bottom if you have specific asks or questions about it. But that way you don't have to think about and put that in your search bar.
Well, and I think it's important. The funny thing is like I'm getting good at like knowing when to cut you off when you're on stream of consciousness. But but to put it in there, like Brian just kind of quoted some rules and isms, the 4% rule, and this is why you don't do X, Y, Z, and all that. In our group, these are what we run our practices every day by. Like Brian just got out of sales meetings and marketing meetings talking to his team about this. So
Mhm.
if you're looking at day-to-day problem solving, if you're looking at week-to-week problem solving, that's what our group offers, right? It's just a group of people who are all working as this is their business, no side hustles or anything like that, and we are just sharing information and trying to figure it out, right? So I
I
think it's
I think it's great, and also experience. I'll tell you a big nugget for any practice owner that's listening right now. Everybody who is in private practice right now knows right around now is when it starts to dry up with some of these referrals. Right, the less like next 6 weeks, people are going, and then into
except if you're in Arizona, baby.
well, exactly, fair enough. You start to ramp up, and it's not the one thing that we do a really good job of. It's the one other thing I didn't talk about is engaging your existing and past patients,
Hmm.
right? Because then what happens is now the snowball effect happens. So I'm getting these referral sources, people are coming in. I remember when I was just getting my first few patients, right, first few clients, and putting them on an email list. Now, like I've talked about in the past podcasts, we've got like 15 to 20,000 people on our lists. So what happens is now I can send an email, and now I'm reactivating with different services, reactivating with different, whether it's physical therapy. I'm talking a lot about FSAs right now and how they're going to disappear if you don't use them
Yeah.
in the next 6 weeks. So, you want to be careful about that because January 1 rolls around. But again, this is why we got into fitness, because now there's a synergistic piece where Jan 1 is big on the fitness side.
Yeah.
So it ultimately can strengthen your business. So there's different angles and referral partners that you can think about. And I think one thing that I would think about is if you're a private practice owner, I would be relentless about creating 20 rock solid, referral partners all the
Hmm.
time, because I think if you do that, it's going to help you try and grow your practice. I give all of my PTs, I'm like, you got to find 10 to 20 that you can basically start to work on. And again, some of them even overlap. Like you guys can do it together. You have different offices. So whether it's a gym, whether it's like I said, a gym or honestly colleges. So we talked about the, educational institutions. A
Yep.
couple of my PTs are working at like Fairfield University and SHU, and they're working at these different universities around here trying to get athletes, right?
Yep.
So high schools, right? So we do stuff during high school. We do stuff at all the different high schools locally here, right? Greenwich High School. So you can always be doing different things and creating referral sources. That's a monster.
Well,
I
and
think it's the
that's why I
best.
think it's in that's why I love for like scaling and people building their own practices. Even if you're only scaling from like one, adding maybe 1, 2, 3 employees, have them have their own social media, right?
Yep.
Like have them go out and then that they can start spreading their own net without having to like drive to a million places. And then, like you said, encourage them to take time instead of, okay, you're in my clinic at 4 p.m. I want you at Sacred Heart University at 4 p.m.
Yep.
Or, with some of these things where,
Exactly.
you as the practice owner can facilitate that, but you have to have that in mind of, I want 20 sources, because I will tell you that I've come across way too many clinic managers, practice owners, VPs, things like that, who just really care about getting that 1 or 2 orthopedic practices in the city. Like, if
Yep.
we just get those, then we'll be great, right?
But
And
the thing about
it's
that, right?
not the
Oh,
way.
and how many people are saying the same thing about that same freaking practice,
Exactly.
right? It's like awesome. So let's all go to do battle over this one people. And like my big thing, honestly, like, and I really liked this orthopedic surgeon. She was a really cool person, blah blah. Blah. And I actually think like maybe something's going on in her life that like I can't control, right?
Yeah.
That. And I was like, whatever, I have no control over that. But the reality is, I'm also not going in there groveling, being like, please, come on, give it. Like, I don't want to do that
Yeah.
shit. Like, I'm too far ahead of that. Like, there's no, all
Yeah.
right, whatever. That one person doesn't want to send us people, cool. On to the next 50 that do, right?
Yeah.
So,
Dude, isn't it nice? Like how when we were sitting in PT school like 15 years ago, and
yeah, great
everyone
stuff.
was like, "Oh yeah, we did all this about the doctors and all that stuff," and now you're sitting 15 years on a podcast, like, dude, I'm over that. I already got like five things, and
Dude,
that independence I love because
yeah.
you have to have that to grow.
And look, I said to my PTs, I was like, you know what, honestly, like, could I have done a better job of probably referring her more people? Maybe, right? I probably could have,
Yeah, but
but
then you don't want to find surgeries for people.
no, bingo, bro, bingo, right? Like that's
Yeah,
not the business I'm in. So at the end of the day, like my job is to actually not refer you people because I'm going to actually get people better. And I'm sorry
yeah,
if that's not advantageous to you, but the reality is like you can then go out into the community and tell people that, and they're like, "Hot damn, that's awesome." So like that's one of
yeah,
those things where it's like whatever, you know. So it's just one of those pieces where it's like it's not a big deal. You just got to keep kind of moving forward and keep building relationships. And we haven't even talked about it on, but I know we've talked about like groups like BNI and Chamber of Commerce and
yeah.
other small business networking groups, but those are also monsters because those
Well,
are one of those things where yeah,
let's talk about that a little bit because I
yeah,
think Kelly, Kelly brought up in our mastermind call this week about how she went to moms,
yeah,
right?
mom's groups
And
pretty much.
she had one or two super connectors in her mom's group, and then they really spread out. And obviously, if you're a mom, that's a great way to do it. So, any moms listening to this, go for it. Dads, like Kelly very nicely pointed out to us, are lazy. Um, but I did not
So
say
messed
she was
up.
wrong. Did not say she was wrong. But BNI or Business Networking International is a group that incentivizes referrals, right? Everybody's incentivized to send others. And everyone who's been in one of those groups knows there's some people in those groups that, yeah, they'll send you one or two maybe over the course of the year. But my God, there's probably about 4 or 5 super connectors in each group where they know
Yeah.
about 50 different people. All of them need your help and they will spread your net wide, right? So I'm a big believer in the networking groups.
I think there's. I'm trying to remember the book, and I never read it, so that's why I'm trying to remember it. But it was like the power of 10, something like that. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
It's. I think it's. Is it power of 10, something like that? No, I can't remember the book, but basically what it
I'll put it
talked
in the
about.
show notes.
All you need, yeah. Well, we'll find it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Basically, what it talked about is if you have 10 super connectors for your
Mhm.
business, that's enough, right?
Yeah.
So what that means is if 10 people refer you 10 people, that's a monster because now you got
Yeah.
100 new clients and now it snowballs, and that's really like find your 10. And I can, I think if you can make that list, be like, where am I at on that 10? Do I have, how many people do I have? Okay, I got to find more. Those are
Mhm.
people that I think can really make a big difference.
Yeah.
That can huge big difference. So anyway, I'm a big believer in that. I think there's ways to get the snowball going and the snowball effect rolling. So yeah, I mean those BNI groups, I mean they're huge. Like anytime that you have, because those people will know people that you need to know, right? They
Mhm.
will use your services. Those people that they send you will also send you people. They're also small business and entrepreneurs. So you find a really good group that can really help build your stuff. I mean, it's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I agree. I'm a big networker, and I found. And by the way, on the flip side, it's also a great Rolodex for me. And the
Mhm.
last thing I would say is I'm a big piece about in BNI that I've learned. Right, givers gain is the big thing they talk about. But the psychology of reciprocation. If I give Owen something, Owen feels like he needs to give me something, or vice versa. Owen gives me something, I'm like, oh, I feel indebted. I need to get something to Owen. So
Yeah.
that's the thing about like that mentality. And when you find really good networking groups and you create that mentality, like look to how to give people. Like I said, how do I do? I go into communities and I look how I can give them value, how I can give them something that they need, and then ultimately the way that comes back to me is, oh wow, I want to help him too.
Well, and then that's I think what I want to end this podcast on is that mentality of how can I help you? How can I
Yes.
provide value you said earlier, right? And so anybody struggling who's saying like how do I get like, Brian said I need 20, 30, 40 referral sources. How do I do that? 4% run all that. Every time you meet somebody as a business person, you should be thinking, how can I help them? Right. And if you do that, do it for long enough and you stay consistent with it, you will have a nice mesh of referral partners.
Yeah.
So,
And I will say real quick, a big piece to close it out too on that. So many different business books, business podcasts talk about create value, create value. How do we create value? How can I help you? How can I help you? That's all you got to say. As a physical therapist, that should resonate with every single one of you. How can I help you? And I think if you can help people, I don't care whether it's in a big group of people or one-on-one, that's how you're creating value, right? And
Yep.
I think that's huge. So go ahead, take it home on the third read, Owen.
And physio growth is where PTs turn their passion into profit. Get expert mentorship to expand your practice and achieve financial freedom. Start today at school.com/physiogrowth-mentorship-group.
Nice.
There we go.
Rough.
I know we got to put those reads in, so like we totally like remind it. But that the more I'm reading them now, I feel like I'm like I don't
Cranking,
know, like
man.
you see those ads on like those old like game shows, like Price is Right or something like that. It's like if you need your carpet, shined, blah blah blah, So I get into that old.
Cranking, man. You're
Uh,
good. You're good. I know. Now we're churning right along. It's good.
our last one was how we're like used car salesmen. So yeah, we're really really looking good on this. All right, all right, my man. We are all good
All
for
right.
today, man. Have a good Thursday.
You too, buddy. See ya.
See you.